Hi there and welcome, this is Jennifer. So I'll be honest, I'm not the best at sending out birthday cards. I'm okay with other occasions, especially unexpected cards, but birthdays I struggle. So I'm making an effort to create more birthday cards, and you'll see these in videos. Today I'm creating 3 Celebrate cards, all that are pretty fast to make, but I use layering stencils creatively to add more details to them. Now, I used these same products in my last video. If you haven't watched that, I do a fun pop-up card technique. I'll link to it up here on the top right. But today, it's not about anything super technique-y. It's just about making the most of your layering stencils. Let's get started with this example where I do a soft rainbow blend across the card. For this, I'm using the new Pretty Pink Posh Layered Candles Stencil set. Layering stencils are becoming more popular, and I think it's fun to come up with ways to kind of step up the detail of them. I did want to mention I used the same stencil set in my last video, so if you want to see how to make this card that has lots of pop-up dimension and colorful tone-on-tone candles, you can check that out. Again, it's linked up here in the top right. But today, I'm going to use the same stencils to do a soft rainbow background. I'm starting with a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch top folding white note card, and I've placed it on my Brutus Monroe stick and stamp mat. I like to use this for stenciling because my card stays in place, it sticks to it, and I don't have to worry about getting ink on the back of it. The sticky mat also holds the stencil in place as I do my inking. Now you can use whatever inks and inking tools you want here. I'm using a variety of different dye inks and then Altenew blending brushes. I have the first stencil down, which is the solid candle shape. Over this, I'm doing a soft blended rainbow. I'm starting in one corner with pink and then working to the other opposite corner with blue. And I'm doing a light amount of ink. Notice that I am overlapping the inks quite a bit. The best way to get a blend from one color to the next is to do that overlap. You will see I also tap the excess ink off on my work surface before I bring it to my paper. That will prevent any harsh lines from the blending tool and ink. So I'm going from pink, yellow, green, teal, and then blue. Always making sure to overlap and using a very light hand so I have a soft amount of ink. Now you could definitely go bold here if you wanted, but I plan to use the second stencil that adds details to the candles with the same color for a tone-on-tone look. So I want this first application to be soft. Now it's time for the second stencil, which is very easy to line up. This will add the details to the candles. I'm applying the same color of ink over the candles, but in a very generous or heavier amount. Now you could switch to a darker ink pad or just use the same ones you used before and apply a heavier amount of that ink. It's totally up to you. Now notice that I'm following the same blending that I did before. I'm putting the darker pool on top of the lighter pool that's already there. So once I've worked my way across the stencil, we'll have a soft rainbow blended array of candles, and they will all be tone on tone. This is a very fast way to use layering stencils and create something really fun and colorful. In my last video, I masked each row, so each row would have different colored candles. There are a lot of different things you could do with this. Now for the third and final stencil, line this one up, and this is the flames. So I'm using Hero Art's Butterbar Yellow to apply color to all of the flames, doing them all the same. Then I will take an Altenew Detail blending brush, which has a small tip to it, so it's easy to apply a little bit of ink here and there. And I will add an orange ink to the bottom of these flame openings, just giving it the look of dimension and adding more color. Now you could definitely stop here and even just stamp a sentiment on top in black and have a nice one-layer card. But I wanted to add some sparkle to that background. So I thought it'd be fun to add some clear sparkle glaze or gel over the flames alone. You could even add it to the candles if you wanted to, but I wanted to leave them as is. I decided to use Gina K Designs Glitter Glitz Gel, the iridescent version. So this is clear with iridescent glitter in it. It will block a little of the color behind it, but I'll show you a solution to that in a moment. There are many different glitter gels out there, and some do allow you to see the color behind it more, and some have color themselves. So you can just try whatever you may have. This is a great opportunity to use up some of those older products. I'm just scraping the product across using a palette knife. Then I will quickly clean off my tool, close the jar, and clean off the stencil. I usually just run it under water and it is good to go. You just don't want it to dry on there. Now check this out. Look at that beautiful shine that's on the candles. You can still see the yellow and orange showing through, but we'll intensify that in a moment. Now I'm going to set that aside and let it dry for a while. After it's dried, I like to use scissors and a paper sander just to knock any of the extra dried gel that kind of sticks off the edge of the card. You could add more detail to this, maybe add some sparkle or white dots to the candles, but I decided to keep it simple. For sentiment, I'm using the Pretty Pink Posh Celebrate Script die, and I'll use this on all 3 of my cards. This will allow me to create the cards much faster since I'm using a lot of the same supplies. I also will white heat emboss on black cardstock a sentiment from the Pretty Pink Posh Let's Party stamp set. And finally, I'll be using the Pretty Pink Posh Birthday Scripts stamp set to stamp a matching word on the envelope flap, just to pull everything together. I used a lot of these products in the last video also. So I added the Celebrate die cut, that is 3 black die cuts glued together for some dimension and added on top of our candle background. I also white heat embossed Happy Birthday onto a black cardstock strip and added that just below. Now what I'm doing here is adding a little more orange to those glitter flames. I wanted it to pop, so I'm just taking a permanent marker and adding dots of the orange to the base of the flames. I'm using a Copic marker, but you could even use a Sharpie for this. I don't recommend scribbling back and forth because you don't want to damage the tip of your marker. You just touch the marker tip and you have the color there. So now you can see how our glitter flames pop even more. So this was a very fast card to do. I have that rainbow blending, but then I step it up a little bit by adding the glitter gel with a pop of color on top. I also personally think that a great way to step up a card is to have a matching envelope with a little stamping on it, so it ties everything together. And I used a Gina K Lucky Clover envelope. Okay, let's do our next card example. This is very basic also, just adding a little bit of sparkle, and I'm following the same card design. I really just wanted to create 3 birthday cards very quickly with a few added details. Not rocket science here, keeping it very basic. Okay, so this time I'm using the Pretty Pink Posh Layered Presents Stencil set. So there are 3 stencils once again, and they layer very easily. I'm starting with the solid boxes first, and this time instead of using white cardstock, I am using a light blue cardstock. I do recommend starting with a very light color if you want a colored background, so that you'll be able to see the true ink colors you put on top. If you want to start with a darker color background, I recommend using a pigment ink or distress oxide ink to apply color over your stencil. Those inks show up more on colored backgrounds, but since I'm using a light cardstock here, I can still stick with my dye inks. This time I'm starting with a bigger piece of cardstock, bigger than I need, and I'll trim it down. This will give me an extra border that I'll cut off the side that I can use for another card. I'm using my Waffle Flower Media Mat or Stencil Mat. I like this because I can put my cardstock and stencils in the corner and every time it'll line up. So no need to tape it down, just kind of hold it there and it works great. Now notice I'm doing each row in a different color of ink, and I'm just using my stencil pocket and a scrap of release paper to mask off the different areas. I'll use whatever is handy and I can easily wipe off the ink when I'm done. I do keep these release paper scraps from my double-sided adhesive for things like this. They're just really handy and the ink wipes off easy. Okay, so I'm doing each row a different color, and again, I'm doing a light amount of ink. Now, once I'm done with the first stencil, we can bring in the second stencil, and I just pop it right into the corner and it'll line up wonderfully. Now I'm applying the same color of ink onto each row, but again, a heavier hand for that tone-on-tone look. Now on my last card, I did the rainbow effect across the whole thing. Here we're masking off each row. If you wanted to, you could mask off each box. So each box was a different color. It takes a little more time, but think about it. You don't have to add much else to the card then, so it isn't really a card that is super time consuming. So I'll continue to add the darker color to each row of these boxes. Once I'm done, it's time for the third stencil, which adds the bows. I thought I'd do a silver glitter gel for this, something that would really sparkle and block the color behind it. So these bows will really look like they sit on top of the present. Now I have a lot of these kind of glitter gels that I've collected and I rarely use, so it feels good to put them to use. If you do not have a glitter gel, if you have a basic white texture paste or any kind of modeling paste, you could apply that, then add silver glitter embossing powder on top, let it dry, and then heat set it, and it would give you a similar look. Another thing you could do instead of doing a gel is press Versamark ink over all of the openings, then remove the stencil, add silver glitter embossing powder, and heat set it. So those are some other ways you can get this kind of sparkly look for this layer of the stencil. For the last card, where I used the clear glitter gel, you could have instead used Versamark ink over the stencil and then added a clear glitter embossing powder. That would give you less dimension, but it would also allow the color behind it to show through more. So look through your stash and think about what things you can add to your layering stencils for more detail or shine. So here is the completed card. I trimmed that panel down and added it to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. And I have a leftover border piece to use on another card. You can see how we have some sparkle and dimension thanks to that silver glitter gel that I put over that third stencil. I added also some silver jewels to the background just to catch the light and add some more sparkle. And then again, I did the same sentiment as before. I did stamp on my matching envelope, so that really completes the look of the card. Now it's time for our third card, which kind of pulls together a few of the different ideas I've already shared. And I thought I'd go for a really pink card to give to my daughter's friend. I'm using the Pretty Pink Posh layered cupcake stencils. These work just like the other two stencil sets. I love that they have these 3 different birthday options because I really need to be making those birthday cards. I am starting with a light pink cardstock and the first stencil, which is the little cupcake liners, and I'm applying a light amount of pink ink over this. This time I'm doing the whole stencil the same colors, so all of the cupcakes will have the same colors. When I'm applying a lot of ink over a stencil, I like to use a bigger blending brush. I just find it handier, but you could use the same brush for all of them. This time I applied kind of an uneven amount of ink over that, so some cupcakes have darker icing and some have lighter. Now it's time for the third stencil. I just popped that right in the corner and it'll line up. And I thought it'd be fun to add a little bit of kind of a medium amount of purple ink to this. So this will be pretty subtle, but I did take a smaller blending brush and apply the ink heavier on these little stars and hearts that sit on top of some of the cupcakes. Then I did add a little heavier ink to some of the sprinkles too, just so we could have a variation of color on the background. So don't feel like you have to do everything the same color. You could even do small areas in different colors using a smaller blending brush. Now at this point, I could have stopped, have a smooth card, just do some stamping on it, and it would be one layer. But you know me, I like to step up the detail. So I decided to put a clear glitter gel again over this, like I did on the first card. So this will do clear glitter over all of the purple we did. Now remember, most of the purple I did wasn't very heavy, so it wasn't very dark. This glitter gel will cover a lot of that purple because it's not perfectly clear. If you want that purple to show through more, you could, instead of using the glitter gel, you could use a blending tool and Versamark ink and apply Versamark over this stencil, so it'd be right on top of the purple. Then add clear glitter embossing powder, and that would allow you to have some sparkle but still show the purple through. So what I decided to do to add more color here is I let that glitter glitz dry, and I'm again adding more color on top of that glitter with a permanent marker. I'm using a Copic. Again, I don't go back and forth to color it. I just kind of dab the tip down because I don't want to damage the tip. These tips are pretty strong. Shouldn't have to worry about it, but I like to be careful just in case. I'm adding some darker purple to some of the sprinkles on top. And then I come in with different shades of pinks and purples and add color to some of the other sprinkles too. Now you could go to town and maybe do like a rainbow of sprinkles. I just tried to stay in the pink and purple color families. I think it's fun to add these pops of different colors just to bring more interest and detail to the background that you've created, and it really doesn't take long to do it all. Now I again trim this down to go on a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch note card, and then I saved that extra border that I cut off for a future card. I again added the black Celebrate and the white Heat Emboss sentiment strip underneath, and I have a stamped matching envelope. You can see how those little pops of different colors on the sprinkles add a lot to this simple kind of monochromatic card. So these 3 birthday cards I was able to create pretty quickly, and it didn't take any kind of unique technique. I just thought of different ways to add details to the backgrounds. So those details don't have to take a lot of time or be anything super impressive, but you can still create something that is really special, shiny, and hopefully the recipient will like. I hope you liked this simpler and shorter video. I plan to do these every once in a while to shake things up. If you have a favorite from these 3 cards, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. If you're interested in any of these supplies, they are linked in the YouTube description below. At the end here, I'll link to a couple other layering stencil videos you might want to check out. Thanks for spending this time with me. I have another video very soon, so I'll see you then.